On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're diving into the best wins of the Thunder season, what to expect post All-Star break, and the top 5 most favorite playoff matchups for the Thunder and beyond, all on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder win draft, what to expect post All-Star break, and top 5 playoff matchups with Brandon Rabar, 1077 The Franchise, dailythunder.com, media luminary, Brandon Rabar. Brandon, how you doing today?
I'm excited. I love drafts. Like, you could have picked me to do any sort, like you could have been like top 10 favorite candy bars or movies or like bands from the 90s. I would be all in. So I'm excited about doing a draft here.
Spoken like a man who has 17 at fantasy football leagues. Brandon Rabar loves himself a good draft. And so I thought this was a good way to close the book on the pre-All-Star break portion of the schedule. What are the best 10 wins to date for the Thunder? And here's how we're going to make this list. We've taken your suggestions from the comments. We'll see if they actually get drafted. I'm going to pick 5. Brandon's going to pick 5, snake draft style, so we're not picking the same games. Therefore, we will end up with 10 if my Lawton Public Schools math is correct. Brandon, I'm going to give you the second pick, which sounds like I'm giving you a negative, but you get, after the number 1 overall pick, you get 2 right off the bat to take some luster out of my board. And the number 1 pick is in. It was in before we even hit record. The number 1 pick in the 2025 pre-All-Star break OKC Thunder wins draft is the Boston Celtics win on Sunday afternoon. For some reason, it was not on national television, but it was a 105-92 win over Boston January 5th, which really, I think, catapulted Shai's MVP case. I mean, there are so many plays from that game which will be featured on Shai's sizzle reel if he does win MVP, that I think it has to be the number 1 pick in the draft.
That is a great pick. I did not have it number 1. So
Wow, your number 1 pick's still on the board at number 2.
It is. I'm pretty pumped. This is like when the Thunder chose Chet at number 2, and he was always going to be their number 1. Like, regardless of whether, Orlando took Paulo or Jabari, whoever they took, Chet was going to be their number 1. Look, Boston's a great pick. That is a great one. It was in my top 3, just like I'm sure Paulo was in the Thunder's top 3. But not their number 1, and that is not my number 1. My number 1 is that Cavs win in OKC, 134-114. They were the number 1 seed in the West, number 1 seed in the East, and just like a week before they'd played each other, and the Cavs won a really tight, fun, back and forth game. It was super hyped. The rematch was hyped. And what was so impressive about that Cavs win was that the Thunder did it without Isaiah Hartenstein or Chet. Like, they found out the day before that Hartenstein wasn't going to play. So this rematch that was super hyped up, they weren't going to have Hartenstein. And not only did they win, they won big. They won by 20 points, and they ran Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen off the court with no bigs. Incredibly impressive, I thought.
Have you seen the movie Draft Day?
I have, with Kevin Costner.
Yeah, this is my Vontae no matter what post-it note. I was biased making this board of like Boston Celtics number 1 no matter what. Let me see if I can pull off some draft day magic and salvage this draft, because I think that Cavs game is going to give you a leg up through 2 picks. But you're right back on the clock, Brandon.
Okay, I'm pretty confident in this next pick as well. I'm going to have to go. This is a recent one, but this is not recency bias. It is that Grizzlies win on the road, 125-112. The reason this was so impressive was this was the second night of a back-to-back for the Thunder. The Thunder were missing Chet. They were missing a lot of players. The Grizzlies were fully healthy. They're the number 2 seed. They had won 10 of 11. They had won 4 in a row. They had 2 days rest. The Thunder were playing the second night of a back-to-back, third game in 4 nights, missing guys. Everybody was wondering, like, oh, is the Grizzlies' size going to be an issue? They haven't played the Grizzlies at full health. They're an X factor in the playoffs. The Thunder walk in and just dominate that game, wire to wire, 125 to 112, and it wasn't that close. It wasn't as close as the final score looks.
I can't discredit that. I think that that's a great pick. Now, I'm in a rock and a hard place. This is not a draft pick I'm rushing to the commissioner. I might even end up wasting all my time and not getting a pick in. I'm so conflicted. I'm between 2 games, and you'll be able to tell which 2 I'm between whenever I pick the selection. But what keeps coming back in my mind whenever I'm thinking of who to draft is, Brandon, you'll always remember your first. Doesn't matter how it went down, but you remember scoring your first bucket, baby. And it's SGA's first 50-point game, the lackluster win over the Utah Jazz, which was an unceremonious game, but it was Shai's first ever 50-point game, and it did spark a run of 3 straight Wednesdays where he scored 50, and I was between the Utah win or the Jazz game, but the Utah win or the Suns game, but you just never, ever forget your first.
That is a great pick. I like you said, that was like, I think, pretty symbolic of Shai this year. He's been one of the best scorers in the NBA for years and years and years, and everybody kept waiting for that first 50-point game. It's been talked about in post-game pressers. Other Thunder players have been asked about it, and they're like, it's coming. It's going to come soon. Baby. And he gets it, baby. And he gets it, and then he gets it 3 Wednesdays in a row, and he's just rolling. And, like, that's kind of been his season. Like, he's hit this milestone, and if he wins MVP this year, it's just like he had to cross that hurdle of 50 points. And, like, I don't know. It just kind of opened up the floodgates, I thought, and got him on that, national radar, even more so than he already was.
And you know what, Brandon? Maybe I'm just hopped up on Mountain Dew, but give me a second 50-point game in a win where he's able to beat the Jazz. I mean, he was able to beat the Jazz and then the Suns in a 50-point game, because what I think elevates this game is not only did you run the Suns out of the gym on national TV, and everybody talks about how the Thunder can't play on national TV, and we forget that they just boat raced the Suns as the trade deadline rumors swirled around Kevin Durant. They boat raced the Suns before the deadline. But it was a fun game because you were looking, and at first glance, you were like, man, another game where Shai's a victim of the success of the Thunder. He's not going to get there. And then as the dust settles from the T-shirt cannons blasting us at Media Row, here emerges Shai to start the 4th quarter, a decision by Mark that even shocked Shai, so it had to shock all of us to our cores that he was allowed to go and, let's face it, hunt 50. And he got 50, and he got 3 straight 50 balls on Wednesday night games. That was an incredible game, so I'm going to draft that win.
Whew. All right, I like it. You've left me a game I did not think was still going to be there, though. I'm going to go.
See, I don't like when you do this. I feel like a terrible GM when you keep doing this whole like, oh, I didn't know that I was going to get this pick. Oh, I didn't know.
I feel like J-Dub just fell into my lap at number 12 is what I feel like.
So basically, Brandon's the 2022 draft, and I'm the Poku draft. Great.
I'm going to go with the New York Knicks, 117 to 107. This was a game the Knicks were in control of all game long. It was in Oklahoma City until the 4th quarter. Knicks were up double digits going into that 4th quarter, and then Aaron Wiggins happened. It was that game where Aaron Wiggins could not be stopped. He was 4 of 4 from 3 in the 4th quarter. Completely flipped that game. The Knicks considered a contender in the East, and this was like in the middle of a big stretch of wins for the Thunder. And the next game was when they beat the Celtics. So I was just incredibly impressed by this comeback and by Aaron Wiggins in particular. He saved the Thunder's win streak that day, as he always saves basketball.
Well, let's relax on the J-Dub analogy, because this might not even be the best Knicks win, but go ahead with your next pick. I thought you were not
All right,
my
my next
show-stopping pick. I forgot about. Go ahead.
All right,
let me
you went
guess.
with
Let me
two.
guess. This is like whenever the Clippers traded Shai. Is this your next pick here?
Yeah, I'm honestly
Oh,
shocked.
Greg Oden just got taken.
that
I got Kevin Durant now. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I can't believe this one is still here because on this show, Rylan, on this show, like a week ago, you told me that you thought this was the most impressive win of the season, and it's still here. You went with 250 balls in a row. I'm going to go with 2 comebacks in a row. I'm going with the Miami Heat comeback. The 24-0 fourth quarter, Thunder were down all game long. They were down big. They were down 21 points. It was the Thunder's biggest comeback of the season. It's the biggest uninterrupted run in the NBA this season. I mean, it's 24-0, and I'm getting at this pick. Thank you, Rylan. I appreciate you letting it fall here.
Yeah, sorry that I was hoping you would forget about that and I could draft it next. But it didn't. That ployed strategy did not work. However, what did work is leaving this one on the table. I can't believe that Brandon hasn't drafted this pick yet. Oh my goodness. There's only 44 to choose from. I'm shocked he hasn't picked this one in the 4 of the 44. Listen. Luka Doncic played a basketball game in Oklahoma City and was completely and totally neutralized. And you got a rare win over the Dallas Mavericks in the play-in to punch your ticket to Vegas and make it big in Vegas like Buck Owens. What a win that was for Dallas, and what a really turning point in everyone's season it was, as a few short weeks later, Luka would no longer be a Mav.
That's a great pick. I considered that pick. You want to know the reason I didn't choose that one was because
you can't believe the fifth pick you're going to get.
Because MJ Washington didn't play that game. So really, the Mavs' best player didn't even play that game.
Great. Keep digging at my draft class. I mean, thanks a lot. I'm not going to get a job with Sam Presti now. But we're done snaking, so this is your pick 5.
Okay, this is tough. I'm going to have to go with, though, the season opener. It was in Denver against the reigning MVP, Jokic, a preview of this season because it's got the top 2 MVP candidates from last year, the top 2 MVP candidates this year. The Thunder open up this season, in which they've been dominant this was such a convincing win against Denver on opening night. They won 102-87. Chet outplayed Jokic opening night. That seems like forever ago. I know Chet's missed most of the season. He's back now, and Jokic is now right there neck and neck with SGA. But once upon a time, when this season opened, Chet outplayed Jokic opening night. Yeah,
Chet did outplay Jokic on opening night, and Chet, had a certain fall, literally on November 10th that has made us forgot about that. But what a start to the year it was for Chet Holmgren. And Brandon, for the last pick of the draft, Mr. Irrelevant on this draft, which I think might be the best game on the board, I'm going to take the Isaiah Joe game against New York, where he was just scorched earth in the Garden, and he was able to sweep the streets of New York. They not only robbed the Knicks of their center, they robbed them of 2 wins with the Isaiah Joe game and the Wiggins game, both coming against New York. That was a big win. That was a fun win in Madison Square Garden. I'm gonna close the draft with that one.
All right. Are the comments section, is that going to be like, are they going to give us the grades and decide who wins this?
Yeah, the comments will decide who won the draft. Based upon the Brandon propaganda we got here on this podcast, I'm sure that we haven't led the jurors at all of what to do here. I'm ruling already for a mistrial, but how in the world did Brandon get the 5 best games of the season all of a sudden every pick? But coming up, we'll close the book on pre-All-Star break and talk about what to watch for post-All-Star break. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at TurboTax. Check out TurboTax today, because this is a message from our sponsors at Intuit TurboTax. Taxes are waiting, wondering, and worrying. And if you're even worrying about if you're ever going to get any money at all, but now taxes are no longer waiting, wondering, and worrying. It's now a wow tax season with TurboTax, because matching with TurboTax is perfect to match with one of their experts who can get you your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you and your taxes the undivided attention and care that you need, and working on your returns today. And while you're getting real-time updates on their progress, you can focus on what matters to you in this moment instead of waiting, wondering, and worrying what's going to happen with your taxes. And so an expert will find you every possible deduction and fill out every form. It will help you with every investment, including all of your other write-offs that you might have. It's 100% accurate with TurboTax. It's right there for you, so you can get your money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worrying. Now with this TurboTax, this is what taxes become. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates are only available for iOS mobile app. And you can see guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guaranteed. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network. Joining us today is Sam Presti, the best drafter of all time. Oh, no, wait, it's Brandon Rabar, DailyThunder.com, 1077 The Franchise. Brandon, whenever you put the kids to bed on the pre-All-Star break and you wake them up on Friday and it's the Jazz and Thunder going at it, what's the biggest thing you're watching for in this post-All-Star break era?
The biggest thing I'm watching for is a finally fully healthy, hopefully, Thunder team and how they implement all the guys. You know, the Thunder finally get Chet back, but Cason Wallace is out. Alex Caruso gets hurt again. We still have not seen this team at full strength and what that means for, full rotations. Like, where does J. Will, his minutes, what happens with J. Will? What happens with guys like Cason Wallace? Like, he started a big portion of this season, with Cason healthy and then with Chet and Hartenstein both healthy. Like, how does all this work out? I'm really curious to see rotations. And we've got a big ramp up to the playoffs here. Will we see different starting lineups, or will they stick with Chet and Hartenstein continuing to do the double bigs thing in the starting lineup? Will it depend on matchup? I'm just really curious. This team is deep. Mark Daigneault trusts all these guys to play. What happens when everybody's healthy and there's only so many minutes to go around? I'm really, really curious how it all works out.
So that's a really good one. And I think that I'm not going to take this topic because it's pretty similar to yours, but it's just you're very curious on how the double big stuff is going to continue to evolve, which they're clearly going to do. But it does lead me into what I'm going to select. And it's just, I think the Thunder are going to prioritize making themselves better for the postseason versus chasing 70 wins or chasing 67 wins or whatever the case may be. I think that they're going to lose more games, post All-Star break than they lost pre All-Star break. And you look at this season, right? They're 44-10. Their best season ever in Oklahoma City. They won 60 games, which means they lost 22 of them suckers throughout that season. Like, it is, you're going to lose games. You're going to acquire losses throughout this stretch. I think partly not by design, because the Thunder are going to try to win every single night. But there is an aspect of, like, sure, the Thunder know that if they want to just try to put the pedal to the metal and win 70 games, the probable best way to do that would be a single center, and you stagger Chet and Hartenstein, you blanket the game in 48 minutes of rim protection, and you just let the kids go play. But if you want to get better for the playoffs, and if you want to really figure out what curveballs do you have, and as Mark would put it, what tools do you have in your toolbox, you need to play all these guys in different environments, some of which are uncomfortable. Clearly, the double big stuff has a ripple effect that's like nobody's quite comfortable, even from Shai down. No one's quite comfortable in those lineups yet. Newsflash, they've only gotten 3 games, and it's like to handle this. So we shouldn't be shocked that after 3 games, they're not clicking on all cylinders. But to be the best version of yourself, I think you need to click on all cylinders. And so I look at, for example, this stretch coming up of Utah. I don't think that there's a lineup that Mark could put out there where you'd lose to Utah. And that could come back to bite me on Saturday, but I don't think that there is. But then you play Minnesota on a back-to-back. And so not only do you have to deal with the schedule aspect of it, of it's a road home back-to-back. So both teams will play each other, and they're going to go from Minnesota and fly to Oklahoma City. That's just a schedule loss for both teams, and who can gut it out more, not necessarily who's the more talented, who can dig deep enough on that Monday to get that win in Oklahoma City. However, like, the double big stuff, I think, will be critical to have in one of those Minnesota games. Get you a full dose again of, hey, this is what we look like pre-All-Star break on the second night of a back-to-back with our double bigs against this roster. Here's what we look like today. And like, hopefully for Minnesota's sake, they're going to have Randall, they're going to have Gobert, they're going to have Conley, to where you can get a better idea of who they're going to be when they're healthy. But just because it didn't work last Thursday does not mean that they're going to abandon it and just not do it in this back-to-back. They're going to do it. And it could lead to some bad stretches, and it could lead to them ultimately losing the game, but it's for the greater good of what they're trying to accomplish, which is a championship. I think that this team is talented enough to still win 60 games, and I think that this team will still beat their all-time win mark in Oklahoma City, but it's not as though they're just going to go and only lose 10 games again for the rest of the season, or 9 games, or whatever it's going to be. I think that they're going to make sure that they take all the necessary steps to try to make this team better by evaluating stuff that is going to look a little bit wonky at times.
What's wild is they only have to go 16-12 the rest of the season to tie the Thunder record of most wins. And that's like a dominant KD, Russ, Harden era that, is looked back at with reverence for good reason. A final trip for Western Conference Finals, probably more had they stayed healthy. So pretty impressive that they only have to go 16-12 the rest of the season to match that 17-11 to beat that. I am very curious about this double big lineup going forward because, like you said, they're going to keep trotting it out there because they need to see what their best lineup is, and if that means double bigs. The thing is, they're going to collect all this data, and if they decide it's not the best thing, okay, at least you know that going into the playoffs, that a single big is the best thing to throw out there. But they got to try it. When you have Chet and Hartenstein, the potential for that lineup could be really, really special. I'm like having 2 elite 7-footers out there on the floor defensively, and then what they each bring offensively, and Chet being able to draw out bigs from the perimeter. And also, we talked about this being a little bit of wonky so far, but look, not only is it 3 games, but it's Chet's first 3 games back. And he's looked really, really good defensively. Like, he hasn't skipped a beat. That said, anybody that misses 3 months, he doesn't have his stamina. He doesn't have his stamina up. I can't talk. It's All-Star weekend. Like, I've forgotten how to talk.
It's All-Star weekend for all of us.
Yeah.
Hey, but spoiler alert, we're doing this podcast right after All-Star Sunday night. That way I don't have to talk for the rest of this week. So I appreciate Brandon for hopping on to do this. But we're clearly running on fumes like Oklahoma City and Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But so Chet's offense is going to get there, but it's not there yet. He's got to find his rhythm and all those things, and he's got to start being more aggressive, and he's going to get there. He's going to start taking more shots. He's going to start taking more threes. He's got to find his comfort level, but that's what, this final stretch before the playoffs is all about. So I can't wait to see more of this lineup. I can't wait to see more of the starting lineup with SGA, Dort, J-Dub, Chet, Hartenstein. That is a huge lineup with a lot of potential. They just got to work out. Chet's got to knock off some offensive rust, but it's going to get there. And I think this could be a really, really good lineup. And I'm really curious to see also what that means for the minutes when those guys go to the bench. If we're going to continue to see like some small ball, some Kenrich at the 5, some J Will at the 5, or if eventually we see games where one of Chet or Hartenstein is on the floor at all times and they stagger them. Really fascinated. We could see, there's still a lot of season left. Anything can happen.
That's still a ton of season left, and you would be doing yourself a disservice to not work out these rust issues, whatever you want to call it, now versus like, what if you run into a matchup in the playoffs where you need the double big stuff and, oh, by the way, we kind of rested on our laurels and didn't do it, and now like it's AD Lively, go get them, boys. Like, we haven't done this all year except for 3 games. We scrapped it, but now go get them. Like, I just think that'd be unfair to everybody. And so, like, even if it costs you a game or two, you'd still rather have that happen than not have every possible data point of when does it work? Like, when does it look at its best? Does it look at its best against other bigs? Does it look like its best whenever you're overpowering a smaller team? Does it look at its best whenever you're just playing a straight up lineup where it's a traditional 1-5? Like, finding out all that stuff is so key whenever you have an 8-game cushion on the 2 seed and you're not necessarily anymore pressed for wins to keep that alive. It's not like last year where it was a jumbled mess and they were a tiebreaker away. They were a prayer from San Antonio away from being the 3 seed versus being the 1 seed. It's not anything close to that right now. So you do have that luxury built into the cake for how good you are. Now, with that being said, I want to be very, very clear. We both think that they're going to win 60-plus games. We both think that they're going to beat their all-time mark. I'm so confident in that. In fact, there's a commenter, and I love this person to death. Their name is Jonathan on the YouTube comments that is begging us, Brandon, to do Teddy Bear Part 2. I'm so confident that the Thunder are going to win 60-plus games. If they do not, I will sing Elvis again if they do not win 60-something games. So I just want to make sure everyone knows I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket on this team. I just think that you have to be prepared for what's to come. And even if they do, hit that mark of 61 wins, they still got to lose quite a bit. It's not as though they're just never going to lose again. And if you saw the reaction to Minnesota's game, you guys need to really work on handling some losses a little bit. You've been spoiled a little bit by this team, but coming up, let's keep rifling through what to watch for and talk dream playoff matchups. But first, I want to say about our good friends over at Hungry Root. Brandon, I have something that you're going to love. Because when it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, much like myself, you've probably felt like, it's an ongoing problem where between work, between life, you've got kids to deal with, you've got hoops to go play, and you've got hoops to jump through as well, that it's hard to eat healthier and to find a consistent time to go to the grocery store, make sure you don't forget what you need, and actually cook what you buy instead of forgetting to do so. But if you want to stick to your grocery goals and your eating healthier goals, you can check out Hungry Root, because with discovering Hungry Root, they have everything to make this a game changer for you. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it has a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of the grocery shopping. They recommend meals and groceries based upon what your tastes are and what your goals are, from anti-inflammatory to high protein to gluten-free options. They have it all for you. The best part is every meal that they suggest and buy for you to make is ready in 15 minutes or less. It's quick. It's healthy meals that actually taste good, all delivered straight to your front door. It's been a huge time saver for me, and it can be that way for you as well. So you're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do if you go check out for a limited time and get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life at hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA. Or use promo code LockedInNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA, promo code LockedInNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA or code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Joining us is Brandon Rabar, 107.7 The Franchise, DailyThunder.com, Media Luminary, OKC Dream Team with myself, and now the Locked On Thunder correspondent, which I am going to pay Brandon for this appearance by ways of lunch, hopefully Thursday. So if you see us out and about, make sure you say something. Brandon, when you look at this second half, I think another question will be, what does the offense continue to look like? Because there are some very positive trends. Obviously, you don't want to peak in February, but can Isaiah Joe still be shooting the lights out of the gym? Can Aaron Wiggins still be such a valuable, consistent contributor offensively? And again, as we talked about, it's not the 25 points a game anymore that was so flashy to start this month, but it's still an efficient 11, 12 points, which in the playoffs is all you're going to need, because we forget that come playoff time, regardless of score for the most part, Shai is going to play 42 of 48 minutes. He's going to play the whole time. So you just need a little bit of a boost from somebody else, and Wiggins can be that guy. Joe getting hot can be what you need. Caruso, when he plays, how can he still get comfortable in this offense and in this offensive system? And I think that Caruso is getting beat up a little bit because we forget, hey guys, I get it. It's frustrating. You'd much rather see Caruso play than not play. They have an 8-game lead of the 2 seed, and none of this, for Caruso, who's a veteran, who's proven himself, like, I'll just say this. I think that in some of these games, not all of them, but if I had to guess, and I'm taking a wild speculative guess, in some of these games, if it was a playoff game, if it was a do or die game, Caruso's going to play. But it's February. And so, like, and that's a total guess. Now, I want to be very clear. That's totally speculation. But it's like we're preemptively freaking out about something where this whole, like, if he leaves for a game and then comes back the next night, it's pretty telling. Like, hey, it was like a little bit of a issue, but he's back. He's good to go. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be concerned at all about Caruso, but I think that the concern level has risen above realistic proportions to this point for Caruso. But as he gets more comfortable, you can watch Wiggins, you can watch Joe. Kaysen, before he got hurt with that shoulder injury, was showing you some really good on-ball stuff, which is an element you're going to need in the playoffs. I think you're just watching the overall offense of how it operates with the double bigs, with the non-double bigs, with Chet, with J-Dub, with everybody. You're watching this offense because you know the defense is historic. You know the defense is locked down for as locked down as you can be in the playoffs.
Yeah, the defense is playoff ready right now. The defense was playoff ready, like opening tip of game one. The defense is going to translate to the playoffs, and the defense is going to win a lot of games. And I think SGA, we saw last year, he was a playoff riser, and I expect that to continue. So SGA's offense is going to translate to the playoffs. So, like you said, the question moving forward will be, like, can the offense continue to operate at a high level that we've seen lately? And a lot of that is shots going down, Isaiah Joe getting hot, Aaron Wiggins has been hot, but then, J-Dub, I think, has been really good lately. Chet getting back into the offense, I think, is going to be huge. So yeah, and I agree with you. Again, it's a guess, it's speculative, but I would imagine Alex Caruso, he played through a lot of nagging injuries last year in Chicago. The Thunder, to be at their optimum best, need Alex Caruso to play healthy in the playoffs. So I imagine they're being cautious with some of these injuries because Caruso is still a top 6 player in this rotation and can be a big X factor in the playoffs. So I do think that, going forward, my eyes are more towards the offense, the last stretch of the season as well. And like how a healthy Thunder team kind of organically shifts all these rotation minutes and the shot distribution and all those things. And we've heard SGA this season say, like, he wants to do a better job of making sure his guys are ready for the postseason. And I think we'll continue to see that as well, because if SGA has guys like J-Dub and Chet, go for 20 points in the playoffs, and you can get another 10 points from Hartenstein, 10 points from Caruso or Wiggins or Joe. And, that's what this team needs. The defense is going to be there. Shai's going to be there. And if the rest of the offense, and there's some really capable shooters on this team, there's some really good offensive players on this team. And we've seen this offense operate at a high level, especially in 2025, the calendar year. They've been getting better and better. It's trending the right way, and the team is getting healthy. So if it continue to go that way, things will look good going into the playoffs.
They will look very good heading into the postseason. And we're going to have our 5 favorite postseason matchups. This can be, let's do only Western Conference, but it can be Thunder specific if you want to just do like 5 teams who you think would, and we're not even talking about just winning, because we do think the Thunder would beat most teams, but this is all encompassing: talent level, competitiveness, drama, TV ratings, storylines, everything that you can ever think of. If you believe that the NBA is rigged, how would you rig it to get these great playoff matchups, your top 5 matchups for the Thunder? So we're going to do that. Also, as a programming note, Monday we talked about Shai in the All-Star game. Today we're with Brandon Rabar. You've heard what we've talked about so far. Wednesday, we're going to have our NBA squad show. And then Thursday, we'll have Joe Mazzato. And then we're back on Friday, back to normal, doing the Jazz recap that night. And I'll try to have a mailbag for you that morning. So drop your questions down below for our mailbag podcast. But Brandon, top 5 Thunder playoff matchups. Hit me with what would be if you could just sit down right now and say, for entertainment purposes, for basketball purposes, I would love to watch this Thunder playoff matchup no matter how it happens.
My number one would be the Nuggets.
Yeah.
I think now after that huge seismic Lakers Mavs trade, pre-trade, I would have chosen the Mavs. The rivalry, everything that was going on there. Post-trade, I think the Nuggets are the second best team in the West, and you have the top two MVP favorites 2 years running. These two guys are going to finish 1 and 2 in MVP voting 2 years in a row. Clearly the two best players in the NBA the past 2 seasons. So you got those guys going head to head. You have, I think, the top 2 teams in the West. Also, you have Russell Westbrook in what's been a comeback season against this Thunder team.
Russ returning to the Paycom Center. Oh
yes,
my gosh.
Like the
most trip to the finals on the line. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Like the guy, like the most legendary Thunder player of all time at this point, going up against like this team, which is
the last Thunder MVP, potentially against the newest Thunder MVP. Oh my gosh. Yes. The last NBA MVP and the loser of this race potentially against the winner. Oh,
100%. And the Thunder are more equipped now to go against the Nuggets. We have not yet seen Thunder versus Nuggets with Chet and Hartenstein in the lineup. I think, to me, that's clearly the number one.
Yeah, so instead of just belaboring your points, we can just go right to number 2 because I totally agree with you. And at the end, if you have one I don't have, I'll substitute it at the end. But what's your number 2 option?
My number 2, it's the Lakers. And, I mean, it's the Lakers when you're talking about like eyes, ratings, all those. You got LeBron and Luka, and you still have the Luka versus SGA, like the guards chosen in the same draft, and the whole rivalry amongst Thunder fans and Mavs fans, and now it's just like SGA fans and Luka fans. So I mean, and it's the late, and you got a little bit of a storyline with Austin Reeves, played at Oklahoma, and all this. So Lakers number 2.
And it's the Lakers fan base who is already riling up the Thunder fan base about like, oh, the Lakers would beat the Thunder, no one's scared of the Thunder, etc. Now you got to put your money where your mouth is. And perhaps they're right, perhaps they're wrong, but it'd be fun to watch it unfold. We think that the Thunder would win that series, but it'd still be a very fun series to watch because anytime you get 2 of the league's best scorers the league's ever seen against any defense, even a historic one in Oklahoma City, it'd be tough. And so it'd be a really fun series to watch. So you're number 3?
Yeah, and also one last thing. You got the Lakers whistle versus the worst free throw rate of all time, which would be like such a hotly contested thing. My number 3, I'd have to go with the Warriors. Now that they have Jimmy Butler and just the historic rivalry between the Thunder and Warriors, and Steph Curry kind of given like one last, breath with getting Jimmy Butler. So you got Draymond. I think it's the Warriors that they were able to like kind of creep up from the bottom and get into this.
Yeah, you're hitting all the right notes. I mean, it's playoff riser Jimmy Butler. It's Steph Curry who can flip a series and a game on its head by himself. You hit all the right notes on that. Number 4, Brandon, you're 3 for 3. Can you go 4 for 4?
I think I will. I'm pretty confident in this. I go the Mavs. It's still the Mavs. Even though they lost Luka, if they were to get healthy, this team still has Kyrie, Anthony Davis, MJ Washington, maybe a healthy Lively and Gafford. We'll see. And it's still Oklahoma versus Texas. We still got the rivalry from last season, a rematch in the playoffs. Yeah, it's got to be the Mavs 4.
You did go 4 for 4. Now, I don't know if you can go 4 for 5. I don't know if you can go 5 for 5. Let's see if you can complete the list because I have a 5th one that I think is under the radar.
This I thought was the toughest one. I had 2 options. I'll just go ahead and say I went with the Wolves because they went to the Western Conference Finals last year. They've struggled some this season, but you still got the whole Anthony Edwards versus SGA thing and like the superstar that he is. So I would go with the Wolves. Can I guess who your 5th was though?
Yes.
I think you're going to say the Rockets.
No, way off. Oh. This is your first ever like way off miss. As a matter of fact, your 2 was between Minnesota and who?
The Grizzlies.
Okay, so you got one of the 2 I was pondering.
Okay.
My 5th I was pondering. It's funny that we had a clear-cut 4 and we both had 2 for 5. My 5th that I was pondering was Memphis because it's like, Memphis feels like they've been disrespected in all this. They feel like the Thunder, like they were just the Thunder and now they've been passed by and they want to prove something. And we just saw the Thunder play Memphis and like smack them around a little bit without any of their guys on the second night of back-to-back. It's like, there's already tension there too from the grit and grind days where the Grizzlies somehow have arrogance about a series that they just consistently lost, but whatever. It's just so strange. But I also was debating San Antonio.
Ooh.
And the reason,
instead.
and here's the thing, the reason I put them up there is because if you're really trying to rank the series, they have a legit shot at the 8th seed. And I think that there'd be no 1-8 series more watched than Thunder Spurs. Everybody's going to watch Victor's playoff debut. It's coming against Chet Holmgren, who these guys continue to get tied together through their careers. Chris Paul is Chris Paul. He's going to do something crazy in 7 games, 4 games, however long the series lasts. Ultimately, the Thunder still win the series, I think, comfortably. I think they at most would go 5 games. But I think it would be one of those series that we come away with it as saying, no, guys, you don't understand. It was a 5-game series, or even if it was a sweep, it was a sweep, but it was competitive. It was crazy. It was awesome. And we're like having to lecture people years from now who just look at that and say, Wemby got swept? Like, no. Wemby got swept, but it was fun. It was raucous for 4 games. I think that that's what that series could be. And so I would give the edge to San Antonio as my 5. That's why I said it was wild, and you might not go 5 for 5, but you went dang close. 4 for 5.
4 for 5. I'll take that. I do think that those top 4 are like a clear top 4.
Yeah. It's like a tier.
Yes, for sure. And I do agree, though. Maybe I just kind of discounted the Spurs from the equation because I just don't think that they're going to end up making the play-in. But if they were able to creep into the play-in, now that they have De'Aaron Fox, they could make a run. All you got to do is be top 10, and anything can happen in a 2-game sample size.
Anything can happen in that sequence. I mean, truly the play-in tournament has changed the course of series before. Like last year, dude, Zion in the play-in tournament was so fun. Like, think of if you stopped that game at halftime or whatever it was, he got hurt. Like, if you stopped that game right before he got hurt, the storyline the next day would have been, here it is. This is the Zion that was promised. This was everything the Pelicans dreamed of. And then he gets hurt. They still win, and they get swept out of the playoffs. And it's like, oh, it was so deflating to see Zion get hurt, where it's like, that changed everything. Because if Zion plays, I still pick the Thunder to win that series and get their first playoff series win since 2016. I don't pick the Thunder to sweep that series. Like, I don't even know if they get it done in 5. Like, I think it might go 6 or whatever. And so it just changed the whole nature of it. And obviously it changes the matchups too. Whereas like the Lakers went from a matchup where they felt they were favored against Oklahoma City to now having played Denver. And it was just a weird play-in tournament that can really change things. And so, yeah, if the Spurs can just get the Kings out of there, honestly, if you believe the NBA is rigged, then the Kings should miss the play-in tournament. If the Kings make the play-in tournament, then you have to put that idea to rest because it's not rigged at all. But if the Kings make it, boy, they missed an opportunity because that means somebody's at home like the Spurs, like the Suns, who would have been a way bigger draw than this pathetic Kings team, who is like, it's uninspiring. There's no big storyline besides they lost their star. You're not really moved by any other guys. You can respect that Sabonis and Levine and DeRozan are good players, but they're not winners. They're not guys who can take you to win a series. Like if they're in it, then that's the only chance that the Thunder could be put on NBA TV is if they match up with the Kings. If they avoid the Kings, they get to avoid NBA TV games the whole playoffs.
Now, if you wanted to pick like matchups that like you feel like the Thunder could possibly sweep, like, who would you most favor the Thunder?
Yep.
Like to
Kings.
The Kings. Like
Rockets,
in that case,
for me, that might be a hot take, but Rockets.
Yeah, I agree. I like that matchup as well, and the Rockets haven't been playing as well lately, so I'm really curious, like if they can stay in the top 6 or if they fall to the play-in, because it's possible that could be a first-round matchup as well if they end up falling to the play-in.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. Brandon, this was a lot of fun as well. Thank you so much for letting me get this booked up and scheduled out. That way I can take a little vacay on the All-Star break. But until next time, be good and be good to one another.